Hello and welcome to iHeart Cooking. I'm registered dietitian Jennifer Stachler.
And I'm Chef Dugan Wetzel.
We are both from Reid Health. Our program today is brought to you by Reid Health Community Benefits, RPNL, and WCTV. Today on our program, we're going to be talking about why whole wheat. So today on iHeart Cooking, we're going to talk about why whole wheat, because that is actually an important part when we're thinking heart health. So if you think of whole wheat, it is a complex carb. It has essential vitamins, minerals. It's low in fat, so that's something that it adds additional fiber in it at the same time. So it's something that it has been linked to help with lowering heart rate or heart disease. So that's something that today, the whole wheat that we're going to be using is going to be in a dish that is called fettuccine with Brussels sprouts and mushrooms. So we're going to have a combination of everything, but our fettuccine is going to be whole wheat. So that's something that we're getting that complex carb, we're getting those vitamins, minerals, especially a lot of that fiber that we're looking for. So we're going to get started with this recipe, and we already had some water boiling. We're getting our skillet hot over here with some oil, but as you can see, Dugan's grabbing into those Brussels sprouts.
It's starting, yep, absolutely. Doesn't take very long. All you're going to do is take Brussels sprouts, cut them into thin strips. You're actually going to cook them in the oil, the olive oil, with your mushrooms. So they don't need to be real thick. They're going to cook pretty quick.
So while Dugan's cutting up all these Brussels sprouts, the nice thing about Brussels sprouts, a lot of people think, well, you think back to school age when your mom tried to make you eat Brussels sprouts and you're like, ooh, I don't like that. The big thing where a lot of people didn't like Brussels sprouts was back in the olden days. I'm thinking of my grandmother and what my dad used to say, and my husband, what his mom used to do and grandmother used to do. They took a pot of water, they put the Brussels sprouts in it, and they get a nice, awful smell a lot of times. So that's something that turned a lot of people off from Brussels sprouts. We're going to use it a little bit differently, so it gives you a little bit more of a flavor to it. It doesn't have that smell that you're thinking of relating to. But Brussels sprouts themselves, tiny cabbages. So they have a lot of good vitamins like A and vitamin K. They're also good in fiber. So that's something that, again, going back to that heart health, fiber, we want a diet high in fiber, and that's something we want at least about 25 grams of fiber per day. Helps with regulation, helps get rid of waste like cholesterol in our body, so that's something that Brussels sprouts helps provide some of that. It also has that nice green flavor. It has that nice green color to it. You can't get that more of a flavor from it. So when you're thinking green in vegetables, you think a lot of vitamin K. So it does have a little bit more vitamin K, kind of like your dark green leafy vegetables because of that green aspect. Not as high as what you'll see in spinach, but it does provide that nutrition for you.
Okay, about done with the Brussels sprouts. We're actually going to move on to our mushrooms next. Now these three mushrooms that we're actually going to be using in this recipe are the white button mushroom. We're going to use a baby bella, which is just a smaller portobello mushroom. And we're also going to use a shiitake mushroom. I like using the shiitake because it's got a nice chew to it, which lends itself really well to the Asian cuisine because you're using a lot of high heat, fast cooking. So that mushroom holds up. It's very durable. You can switch the mushrooms out. I know creminis are a really good one. If you like more of the earthy flavor, it'll go well with the white button and the baby bella. Or if you want a forest blend, they have a bunch of different kinds in there that are really good that would lend a different flavor to you, just based on what you like to eat.
Because that's something that, while we kind of get the skillet warming up over here, we're going to add some oil, and eventually all these Brussels sprouts and the mushrooms are going to be put into that skillet. So, is this the oil?
No,
Nope,
that is sherry.
Does all of it go in there?
Yeah.
Ooh, and it's hot.
We're good and hot.
So that oil you can see is already, the pan's warmed up, the oil's already hot, so that's something that we'll be getting some of that Brussels sprouts and let those start cooking down in there for you.
Now, since that won't take very long, once everything's cut, we're going to go ahead and add our whole wheat pasta, because this will take about 9 to 10 minutes to cook through. Stir it every now and then so that they separate from each other and it doesn't stick to the bottom of the pan.
And that's something, again, this is a fettuccine recipe, so we are using fettuccine pasta, but that's also, I mean, if you don't have that available or you can't find it, I don't see any problem using a spaghetti or more of a thin pasta. You're gonna get the same kind of aspect to that. So now Dugan's kind of cutting up those mushrooms. A little bit about mushrooms. The very good thing is they're very low in fat, so they have no trans fats, which is a good thing for heart health. Very little none to saturated fats, which are found in all of your animal products. So again, that's something that too many saturated fats are linked to that heart disease. And it's actually a great source of selenium and potassium and some B vitamins. And that's kind of across the board with a lot of mushrooms. They're about all the same with the nutrients. There's just a lot of different variety out there depending on where they're being grown at. Now the nutrition value might change a little bit in how much they have in it because the actual soil they're grown in does make a difference for it.
So the mushrooms I'm working with right now are the baby bellas. As far as a consistency or a flavor involved with them, baby bellas are more of an earthy, they're really durable mushroom. You know that you've seen that people use the big portobellas. You can stuff them, you can bake them. They're really versatile. You can even grill them. They hold their shape really well. People replace them for steaks. That's another option. They're just a really versatile mushroom. Now, white mushrooms are pretty much the middle of the road mushroom. They don't have a tremendous amount of flavor. They're more for texture. For people that aren't really sure if they like mushrooms or not, white mushrooms are a good one to start with because they're not overly chewy, but they're also not, mushy either. They're easy to bite. They're like I said, middle of the road mushroom. Yeah.
So a lot of people relate to mushrooms like, let's say mushrooms on pizza, because that's very common. What kind of mushroom is that? Because a lot of people can relate to that one.
Well, normally it is the white mushroom, but it really depends on your palate. You can use different mushrooms. Baby bellas or creminis are a good option for that.
But commonly it's that one
it
for
is,
individuals who maybe never had mushrooms at home. That's something you can kind of relate to that, thinking, okay, I've had these before. They might have been on pizza or something else you could have had. But nice thing about this recipe, if you're not really been exposed to mushrooms a lot, this gives you an opportunity to try different ones at the same time. And you can see Dugan's just slicing away on all of these, getting a little bit of all of them into the mixture with the Brussels sprouts.
So we're cutting the stems off because it's a little more fibrous. It takes longer to cook than the actual mushroom cap itself, and we don't really need it. What we're going for is all in the mushroom cap. So real simple. I just hold it on the back side and take my thumb and kind of push it until you hear it pop, and then it pulls right out. Really simple. So now we're done with our mushrooms. We've got our oil heated up. We're going to go ahead and just add it to our pan here. You can hear it kind of sizzling a little bit. That means we're good and hot and ready to go. Like we've said in previous episodes, you don't want the oil to be cold when you start cooking, because then especially with Brussels sprouts here being thinly sliced, it'll start to become really soggy before it even gets a chance to cook. So with it already being hot, it's already developing that crispness that we're wanting, that texture difference from the mushroom. So always start with hot oil.
And already he put those in there, and you can start smelling those mushrooms, kind of the flavors develop, and also those Brussels sprouts. I smelled that right away. And again, it's not going to be as strong as what you might remember as a child with put in boiling water. So when cooking these Brussels sprouts and mushrooms, it's going to take about 8 to 10 minutes. Basically, we want to make sure they're cooked through, but we don't want to cook so long that they also become soggy. We don't want to go to that point, because you're going to want a little bit of a crunch there with them. Thinking about mushrooms, about for 3 ounces of mushrooms, you're looking about 3 grams of protein, because that's something that Dugan kind of talked about with the large portobello mushrooms.
Right.
They use those in place of meat for sandwiches sometimes if you're thinking vegetarian. It does provide some protein, but maybe not as much as what animal meats would provide, but it does have that there. Thinking about other recipes, we talked about mushrooms are good on pizzas that they add them, and you see that a lot. But other pastas, lasagnas, we got, shish kebabs, you got hamburgers you can put them on, pot pies, you can add them to any kind of omelets, steaks, salads. So, I mean, mushrooms are very versatile. So that's something that, again, if you're not very comfortable with mushrooms, there's a lot of things you can use them for and kind of experiment with them. So our Brussels sprout and mushroom mixture is done. So we're going to get started with the second half. As you can see, the mushrooms kind of condensed a little bit more up, and the Brussels sprouts actually got a bright green color to them. So that tells you that you're there at that point. So what we're going to add now is some garlic, and you can add as much as you want. It's kind of if you like garlic. I like garlic just for the fact that we're not adding any salt to this. It adds a nice flavor to it. But we're going to let that cook for about a minute. And right when I added that, it got to the heat, you can smell that nice garlic flavor that it has there. One of my favorite smells, that and onions when you saute them. So let that cook down for about a minute, and then we're going to add actually some sherry. And we're going to actually put this in here and let it reduce down a little bit. Sherry is one of those cooking more wines, and that's something you can find it in the baking section next to a lot of the vinegars and oils, but you can also find it in the wine section of the store. So that's something that you can find in both places.
One tip on the sherry, you're better off using just a regular sherry that you would get in the alcohol section, because the cooking sherry, it'll say cooking sherry on there. It's been fortified so that it's more shelf stable, it lasts longer, and it has a ton more sodium in it. So if you want that sherry flavor, it's great right off the shelf. Pick your favorite kind or something with a little bit of flavor to it, and just use that.
Which makes it more heart health there, adding less sodium. So we're going to add that in there and let that reduce down a little bit.
While Jennifer's stirring that, we're going to make the base for our creamy sauce. All we got 2 cups of milk. We're going to add a little bit of flour, whisk until the flour's been incorporated into the milk. And then as soon as the sherry is kind of reduced down, we're going to go ahead and add this into the pan with our mushrooms and our Brussels sprouts and kind of let that thicken up.
Yep. It's going to be our base of our sauce. Also, when I added that sherry, you're going to get that warm wine heat smell when it comes out there, which makes your tummy hungry already. You're ready to eat.
Absolutely. Okay.
Just a little bit longer, I think.
So while we're waiting on that to reduce down, our pasta's ready to go. We're just going to go ahead and bring it over here to the sink. We've got our strainer in the sink. Slowly pour it in. There we go. Now, since we're going to be waiting just a little bit until the sauce is done, a good thing that we can do, run some water over it, kind of clean off the noodles from the starch. That way it's not sticking together. So when your sauce is finally done and you come back, if you don't run water through it, it's going to be a large mass, if anybody has experience with that at home. But by running water through it, it's going to keep it its own single strands. They're not going to become a big mass. It'll be easy to portion once you mix it with the sauce. So just a little bit. You don't need to drown it. You don't need to cool it off completely. You're just getting the starch off of it. Okay.
All right. I think we're ready.
Alrighty. So we're going to go ahead and add our sauce, our flour and milk mixture. Go ahead and scrape the bottom of the pan just in case you get a little flour on there. because that'll help it thicken up a little bit.
Up that flour and that milk mixture, and you can see the color kind of changed. It kind of got a little bit darker with all the other ingredients that are in here. So we're going to add our remaining ingredients. Because we're adding everything into this skillet, one suggestion or tip is make sure you're having a really deep dish skillet. That way when you add the pasta, you add all this stuff, that you're not overflowing on things. So a deep dish skillet is one thing you want. Dugan's adding some Asiago cheese here. That's something, again, that's going to have some salt in it, some sodium. So that's something, again, we omitted the salt from this recipe because you don't need that additional, because you're getting it from the cheese. You're going to be getting it from the sherry a little bit and things like that. Oh, and you can smell that cheese just melting, and you're going to see that it kind of gets gooey with that creamy mixture of the milk and the flour as well. Smells delicious.
Another option, if you don't have a deep dish pan, would be the pot that you boiled your noodles in. Just bring your noodles back into the pan after you've drained them and rinsed them, and then add all of your ingredients to it. So I think we're about there.
And add some pepper.
Sounds
We
good.
can add some pepper on top, give a little bit more of that little bit flavor to it. And I think our mixture is done and the sauce is complete as well.
Yep. Okay, so we're just going to come, add it into our noodles. Get all the stuff off the bottom. It's all the flavor. Then we'll just kind of incorporate it with the noodles, toss it, mix it up, and then we're ready to serve.
You can see that it has that nice, the mushrooms add more of the brown flavor, which is again a contrast to the fettuccine, but those Brussels sprouts add that bright green color to it, so it looks a little bit more instead of just bland with some bland browns and some whites, you get some green in there as well.
Throw a little cheese on top when we put it on the plate.
Yep.
You want me to just do this? Or you got her?
Get a nice. Well, I want the noodles first.
There we go. Gotcha.
Let me get, where did I lose mine? I lost mine.
There you go.
Make it look nice and pretty there. And you can sprinkle it with a little bit of cheese on top. That's again your preference and how you want it to be. But we sprinkled it on top and your dish is complete. Right there you're getting that more fiber. So you got that extra fiber from the whole wheat fettuccine. Again, that whole wheat, the whole grain is what we're looking after. You not only can find that with your pastas, but we're looking at your breads and everything else that has that more complex carb, those vitamins and minerals and that fiber. Then you have a little bit of protein along with the potassium, the low fat with the mushrooms, and then you have those Brussels sprouts giving that nice green flavor, giving you some of those vitamin A, vitamin C, and vitamin K with it as well. So it's a nice complete dish there for you for dinner. So now that the dish is complete, we're gonna give it a try here and let you know what you're gonna expect. Get some mushroom and Brussels sprout all in one bite. The sauce itself is very mild. If you want to add additional flavor, again, add some of that pepper, but it has a very good, nice flavor to that because of also the sherry. You get the crunch from the Brussels sprouts itself, and then the mushroom has more of that.
It's that chewy texture.
Chewy texture to it that you have. You're going to have with it, and each of them might have that little bit of texture difference with each of the mushrooms you put in there.
Right.
Thank you for tuning in to iHeart Cooking. We hope you enjoyed all the information that we provided with you today.
For today's recipes and other shows' recipes, you can visit reidhealth.org/iHeartCooking.
We'll see you next month.